I'm useless.
That's why I'm on my
You're not sending anyone a message.
Just hours before he passed away, Ozzy Osbourne, the legendary rocker, known as the Prince of Darkness, and the voice behind Black Sabbath, shared a haunting final message. Just 2 short words, but they carried a powerful meaning. Now fans everywhere are wondering, did Ozzy sense the end was coming? Was this his way of saying goodbye on his own terms? In this video, we'll explore the truth behind his last Instagram post, his emotional farewell concert, and the legacy he left behind, one that could completely change how you remember him. Ozzy Osbourne's final bow. On July 22nd, 2025, the world of rock music was shaken to its core. Ozzy Osbourne, known as the Prince of Darkness, had passed away. Fans all around the world were heartbroken, but many couldn't help but notice something mysterious. Just hours before his death, Ozzy had posted a backstage photo from his final concert with just 2 haunting words: "Back to the beginning." At first, this message might have seemed like simple nostalgia. After all, the concert was named Back to the Beginning and brought together legendary rock acts in Birmingham, England, the birthplace of Black Sabbath. But when people looked closer, they started to feel something deeper, something more intentional. It was almost as if Ozzy knew exactly what was coming and was preparing to say goodbye in his own way. He didn't want to just fade away. He wanted to leave the stage the same way he entered it, loud, powerful, and unforgettable. The farewell concert itself wasn't just a music event. It was a moment in rock history. Held on July 5th, 2025, at Villa Park in Aston, Birmingham, just miles from where Black Sabbath was born, it gathered over 40,000 screaming fans in person and 5.8 million more watching the live stream around the world. This wasn't a typical concert. It was a grand goodbye. The show featured a jaw-dropping lineup of rock legends: Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Slayer, and others who had once toured with Ozzy or looked up to him. But the main spotlight was on Ozzy himself and the original members of Black Sabbath. The band played some of their most famous songs like War Pigs, N.I.B., Iron Man, and of course, Paranoid. Ozzy also sang solo hits like Crazy Train, I Don't Know, Mr. Crowley, Suicide Solution, and Mama, I'm Coming Home. Ozzy wasn't standing, though. His body had grown too weak for that. After being mostly bedridden for 6 years and suffering from Parkinson's disease since 2019, standing for long periods was simply too painful. Instead, he sat on a throne at the center of the stage. But even in that throne, surrounded by pain, Ozzy looked majestic, like a king saying goodbye to his kingdom. When he spoke to the crowd, it was clear how much this meant to him. "You've no idea how I feel. Thank you from the bottom of my heart," he told the audience, his voice full of emotion. It was a goodbye, but it was also a message of deep love and gratitude. But why did he do it? Why push his body beyond the limit for one more show? That's where the story becomes even more powerful. According to those close to him, including his wife Sharon Osbourne, Ozzy insisted this concert happen. Even when his health was failing and the pain was unbearable, he demanded it. Sharon had spent over a year putting the show together, carefully organizing every detail. But in the end, it wasn't just about planning, it was about Ozzy's sheer will. This was personal. This was his way of writing the final chapter of a story that had begun in the very same place, Birmingham, nearly 6 decades earlier. He didn't want his legacy to end quietly. He wanted it to end with the sound of electric guitars, roaring fans, and the thunder of drums echoing through the night. Even more touching was what happened behind the scenes. While the crowd cheered and millions watched from home, Ozzy was also quietly reaching out to people from his past. One of those people was Jake E. Lee, a talented guitarist who had played with Ozzy back in the 80s after the tragic death of Randy Rhoads. Jake had helped create 2 of Ozzy's iconic albums, Bark at the Moon and The Ultimate Sin. Although they hadn't seen each other in decades, Ozzy made sure Jake was part of this final concert. It was a reunion long overdue. Jake performed The Ultimate Sin and Shot in the Dark during the concert. He felt proud and grateful to be part of it. Before the show, Jake shared that he truly hoped Ozzy would be able to make it through the performance. They hadn't talked in many years, and Jake wasn't sure what shape Ozzy was in health-wise. But he said, no matter what condition Ozzy was in, he deserved this final farewell. This moment was something Ozzy had earned. After the show, Jake shared one last text message he received from Ozzy while sitting at the airport heading home. It was emotional, raw, and full of love. The message reads, "Hi Jake, I'm so sorry I couldn't spend more time with you on the weekend, but it was really chaotic. I would really like to see you when I eventually get back to LA just to shoot the CHT. It's been so long since we saw each other. How did the gig go for you on Saturday? I really hope you had fun. Anyway, I will text you when I get back to LA and we must hook up. Much love and respect, Ozzy." That text now feels like a goodbye wrapped in hope. It's the kind of message someone sends when they know time is short but still want to hold on to the little joys, like catching up with an old friend. Fans around the world were devastated by the news of Ozzy's death on July 22nd. The Osbourne family released a statement saying, "It is with more sadness than mere words can convey that we have to report that our beloved Ozzy Osbourne has passed away this morning. He was with his family and surrounded by love. We ask everyone to respect our family's privacy at this time." They didn't reveal the exact cause of death, but everyone knew about the health struggles Ozzy had faced for years. Parkinson's disease had taken a serious toll on his body. He'd also suffered multiple injuries from falls and undergone several surgeries. But through it all, he stayed strong, stayed kind, and never lost his love for music or his fans. The farewell concert didn't just make headlines, it made history. Proceeds from Back to the Beginning reached an astounding £140 million. That money is being donated to several charities close to Ozzy's heart, including Acorns Children's Hospice, or Birmingham Children's Hospital, and Cure Parkinson's. Even in death, Ozzy continued giving. It's hard not to see Back to the Beginning as more than just a concert. It felt like a carefully written goodbye letter from a man who knew his time was almost up. Every part of it, the location, the lineup, the song choices, the final Instagram post felt like it was part of a greater plan. The phrase, "Back to the Beginning," wasn't just about returning to where it all started. It was a message from a man who wanted to leave the world the same way he entered it, with music, with power, and with a connection to something deeper. It was his way of closing the circle. Ozzy Osbourne's life was filled with chaos, love, laughter, and darkness. He was wild, unpredictable, and often misunderstood. But he was also fiercely loyal, endlessly creative, and deeply loved. His music gave people strength. His story gave people hope. And his final performance reminded the world that even when the body weakens, the spirit can still shine. He may be gone, but his voice, his songs, and his legacy will live forever. He didn't just say goodbye. He gave us a final gift. And with these simple words, Back to the Beginning, Ozzy Osbourne reminded us all that true legends never really leave. They simply return to where it all began. But what made Ozzy Osbourne's final Instagram post so chilling wasn't just the words he chose, it was when he chose to post them. He shared that photo from backstage only hours before his death. Just 2 words, "Back to the Beginning." But those words weren't written by someone shocked by the nearness of death. They didn't come from a man who had just realized his time was up. Instead, they read like a message from someone who had already come to peace with his fate, a man who had been preparing for this moment, step by step, for a long time. In the weeks leading up to his passing, Ozzy's actions started to make sense in a new light. Looking back, it's clear he wasn't just going about his daily life. He was making intentional choices, wrapping up loose ends, and saying quiet goodbyes. He was conducting a private farewell tour, not just on stage, but through the people and places that mattered most to him. He made sure to spend meaningful time with each of his 6 children. With his grandchildren, he created lasting memories, ones that would live on even after he was gone. He reached out to old friends, some he hadn't seen in years, and reconnected with former bandmates who had helped shape his journey through music. Every visit, every conversation felt full of emotion, full of unspoken goodbyes. There was a sense of weight to his words, as if he knew these would be his final moments with the people he loved most. One moment in particular stood out. Right after the farewell concert, something special happened backstage. Ozzy's daughter Kelly got engaged to her longtime partner, Sid Wilson. It wasn't a coincidence. The timing wasn't random or spur of the moment. It had been carefully planned. Ozzy knew he wouldn't live long enough to attend their wedding, but he made sure he was there for the proposal. He wanted to see his daughter happy. He wanted to witness that joy with his own eyes before his time came. Photos from that night show more than a legendary rock star saying goodbye to his fans. They show a father glowing with pride, love, and contentment. His face lit up not just from the energy of the stage, but from the warmth of his family surrounding him. That concert wasn't just a grand goodbye to music. It was a quiet, loving goodbye to life. But this powerful series of goodbyes wasn't something that happened overnight. The groundwork had been laid months before. As Ozzy's health grew worse, the reality of his illness became harder to ignore. Parkinson's disease had been chipping away at his strength for years, but during those final months, the decline became more severe. His wife, Sharon Osbourne, saw the warning signs. She noticed her husband withdrawing, struggling not only physically but emotionally. He wasn't just in pain, he was falling into a deep despair, something he later described as Doomtown. It was a dark place where every morning began with another failure, another part of his body refusing to cooperate, another reminder that time was running out. Sharon, always his fiercest protector and partner, knew something had to be done. She recognized that Ozzy needed a purpose, something to look forward to, something big enough to pull him out of the shadows. That purpose became Back to the Beginning, the farewell concert. But what looked like a massive rock event to the world was, in truth, something far more intimate. It became the final act in a life of music, rebellion, and resilience. While many saw Ozzy as a frail man struggling with disease, behind the scenes, he was quietly putting together the most meaningful performance of his career, his own goodbye. Every detail of his final weeks, who he saw, what he said, where he went, was part of that performance. This wasn't chaos. This was careful. This was planned. It wasn't about giving in to the illness. It was about choosing how to end his story on his own terms. He didn't want to simply disappear. He wanted to make one last statement, not just with music, but with love, with family, with dignity. And he did exactly that. Ozzy's death may have caught fans off guard, but when you look closely, it becomes clear. He had been preparing all along. The concert wasn't held because he was dying. It was held so he could take control of how the world would remember him. Not as someone lost to illness, but as someone who stared fate in the face and chose to write his final chapter his own way. He went out not as a broken man, but as a legend, bowing gracefully under the spotlight, surrounded by the people and the music he loved most. While he was able to shape the way his story ended, how did he become the legend he was in the first place? Ozzy Osbourne in his prime, the rise of the Prince of Darkness. Long before he became a legend, John Michael Ozzy Osbourne was just a working-class kid from Birmingham, England. But by the late 1960s, everything changed. In 1968, Ozzy joined forces with guitarist Tony Iommi, bassist Geezer Butler, and drummer Bill Ward to form a new band. That band would soon become one of the most groundbreaking groups in music history, Black Sabbath. Ozzy's voice was raw, haunting, and instantly recognizable. With it, Black Sabbath helped create a brand new sound, heavy metal. At a time when most rock music was still rooted in blues or psychedelia, Black Sabbath brought something darker, heavier, and more intense. Their music was filled with thunderous guitar riffs, pounding drums, and lyrics that explored fear, war, madness, and the supernatural. In 1970, the band released two back-to-back albums, Black Sabbath, and Paranoid that would go on to define the heavy metal genre. Just a year later came Master of Reality, solidifying their place in rock history. These early albums weren't just popular, they were revolutionary. Fans around the world connected with the band's powerful, rebellious energy. And at the center of it all was Ozzy, who had by now earned his infamous nickname, the Prince of Darkness. With his wild look, spooky vocals, and intense stage presence, Ozzy became a symbol of rock rebellion. But behind the scenes, things weren't always as strong as they looked. By the late 1970s, Ozzy was struggling with addiction. Alcohol and substances began to take over his life. His behavior became erratic, and his relationship with the band grew tense. In 1979, the breaking point came. Ozzy was fired from Black Sabbath. For many, it looked like the end of the road. But in true Ozzy fashion, it was just the beginning of a brand new chapter. That same year, he met guitarist Randy Rhoads, and together they created a sound that was both heavy and melodic. In 1980, Ozzy launched his solo career with the album Blizzard of Oz, and it was an instant hit. Songs like Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley introduced him to a whole new generation of fans. It was clear, Ozzy didn't need to be in Black Sabbath to be a star. Over the next decades, Ozzy released a total of 13 solo studio albums. The first 7 became multi-platinum successes in the United States. His music continued to push boundaries, blending dark themes with wild guitar solos and unforgettable hooks. But Ozzy's fame didn't just come from his music. In the 1980s, he gained a reputation for outrageous behavior, biting the head off a bat, urinating on a national monument, and unpredictable stage antics. These stunts shocked the public and sparked controversy, especially from religious groups who accused him of promoting Satanism. But fans saw through the headlines. They knew Ozzy as the showman, the risk-taker, and the larger-than-life figure who kept heavy metal alive. Even with the chaos, Ozzy never lost his passion for music. Over the years, he reunited with Black Sabbath more than once. From 1997 to 2005, the original lineup came back together for tours and special performances. Then, in 2012, they reunited once more to record their final album, 13, released in 2013. That album went straight to #1 in several countries and reminded the world that Black Sabbath still had power. Their farewell tour wrapped up in 2017, marking the end of an era. Though his health began to decline in the 2020, Ozzy still kept going. In July 2025, he performed one final time in his hometown of Birmingham at a massive event called Back to the Beginning. Although he said he planned to keep making music from the studio, that concert would be the final time fans saw him on stage. Just 17 days later, Ozzy Osbourne passed away, leaving behind a legacy that few could match. In his lifetime, Ozzy sold over 100 million albums, both as a solo artist and with Black Sabbath. That kind of success made him one of the best-selling musicians of all time. He wasn't just a rock star, he was a cultural icon. Ozzy's achievements didn't go unnoticed. In 2006, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of Black Sabbath. Then, in 2024, he was honored again, this time for his solo career. He was also welcomed into the UK Music Hall of Fame twice, once with the band and once on his own in 2005. His fame stretched beyond music. He received stars on both the Hollywood Walk of Fame and the Birmingham Walk of Stars, recognizing not just his musical talent, but his impact on entertainment and popular culture. In 2014, the MTV Europe Music Awards gave him the Global Icon Award, a title that truly fit. And in 2015, the British Academy of Songwriters, Composers, and Authors presented him with the Ivor Novello Award for Lifetime Achievement. Much of Ozzy's success wouldn't have been possible without his wife, Sharon Osbourne. Not only was she his partner in life, but she was also his manager. In 1996, she launched Ozzfest, a yearly heavy metal music festival that gave countless new metal bands a chance to shine while keeping Ozzy's name at the top of the bill. Ozzfest ran until 2010 and became a landmark event in the world of metal. In the early 2000s, Ozzy entered a new phase of fame, not as a singer, but as a reality TV star. The MTV show The Osbournes, lasting from 2002 to 2005, followed the daily lives of Ozzy, Sharon, and two of their children, Kelly and Jack. The show was a surprise hit and made Ozzy more relatable to a whole new audience. Suddenly, he wasn't just the Prince of Darkness, he was also a loving dad trying to live a normal life in a very unusual household. Later on, he returned to TV with his son Jack in the travel and history show Ozzy and Jack's World Detour from 2016 to 2018. The duo also appeared in The Osbournes Want to Believe from 2020 to 2021, diving into the world of paranormal mysteries. Fans got to see a softer, funnier side of Ozzy, one full of curiosity and humor. Through every twist and turn, Ozzy Osbourne stayed true to himself. He took the darkness in his life and turned it into music. He faced battles with addiction, illness, and controversy, and still came out the other side as one of rock's most beloved figures. Whether screaming into a microphone, laughing with his family on camera, or sitting proudly on stage one last time, Ozzy never stopped being Ozzy. In his prime, he wasn't just a part of heavy metal, he was the heart of it. And even now, long after the final note is played, his legacy continues to echo through the speakers of every young rocker who ever dared to dream. But what was Ozzy's relationship with his family like? His journey through family, regret, and redemption reference link. Before Ozzy Osbourne became known as the Prince of Darkness, his personal life was already tangled in chaos. His first marriage to Thelma Riley was something he would later call a terrible mistake. At the time, Ozzy was caught in the middle of a fast-rising music career with Black Sabbath. The constant touring, late nights, and the heavy use of alcohol and drugs pulled him away from his responsibilities at home. His growing fame came with a price. His family life began to crumble. Ozzy had 3 children with Thelma, but his role as a father during those years was far from ideal. His addictions, paired with his long absences on tour, made it nearly impossible for him to be present. In fact, in the 2011 documentary God Bless Ozzy Osbourne, which was produced by his son Jack, Ozzy admitted something heartbreaking. He couldn't even remember when Jessica and Louis were born. The damage of those years left lasting scars, and both children would later speak openly about how difficult it was growing up without their father truly being there. Still, in the middle of all that darkness, change began to take root. During the early 1980s, Ozzy met Sharon Arden, who was working as his manager at the time. Their relationship was intense from the start, full of arguments, passion, and energy. Guitarist Randy Rhoads, who was close to both of them, once joked in 1981 that even though they were always bickering, they'd probably get married someday. And he was right. At the time, Ozzy was still legally married to Thelma, but his connection with Sharon was undeniable. She pushed him, managed his career, and didn't let him fall apart. In many ways, Sharon became his anchor. On July 4, 1982, Ozzy and Sharon got married. Ozzy later admitted that he chose Independence Day for a simple but sweet reason. He knew he'd never forget the anniversary date. That wedding marked a fresh start in both his personal life and career. Together, they had 3 children, Amy, Kelly, and Jack. After Jack's birth, Ozzy decided to get a vasectomy, feeling that their family was complete. Over time, their children grew up in a unique world, part rock and roll circus, part family chaos, but this time, Ozzy was far more involved than he had been with his first 3 kids. His relationship with Sharon, while full of ups and downs, helped give him the structure and love he had long been missing. Despite his past mistakes, Ozzy found ways to connect with his children through his music. He even wrote a deeply personal song for Amy, his eldest daughter. The track was released as a B-side on his 1995 album, Osmosis. At the end of the song, Amy can be heard sweetly saying, "I'll always be your angel," echoing the message of the lyrics. It was a quiet but powerful gesture, a father's way of expressing love the only way he knew how. Ozzy Osbourne's life was a mix of chaos and redemption. Though he struggled as a father early on, he expressed love through songs like "My Little Man" for his son Jack. Later, he found peace with his family, splitting time between England and Los Angeles. Becoming a grandfather brought him joy, and he openly admitted past mistakes. In the end, Ozzy found healing, love, and the strength to shape his own final chapter.